Good morning, everyone. You know, if you want to be a professional, you need to get a license. But perhaps the most important job that anyone could ever have is being a parent, a mother or a father. But yet there's no such thing as a professional father or professional mother. You don't get a license. Why not? If you need a license to do practically anything else, why not for the most important job? In this week's Torah portion, it talks about the contributions of the Mishkan. And then it talks about the artisans, the craftsmen who designed all the vessels of the tabernacle. Now, when the Torah talks about those who contributed, the Torah repeatedly says, those who nadva libam, their hearts were generous. But when the Torah describes those who designed and fashioned the articles of the tabernacle, the Torah says, naso libam. Not that they were generous of the heart, but their hearts were raised up. And the Ramban, Nachmani, says, why here does it say not their hearts were generous, but their hearts were elevated, lifted up? And Nachmani makes a very interesting observation. He says, think about this generation of Jews. There was no professional artisans. There were no interior designers. There were no architects. There were no professional craftsmen. They were all slaves for hundreds of years. How did they know how to build, to construct a tabernacle, to fashion wood and gold and silver and copper and make all the beautiful tapestries? Where did they learn this? And the answer is they never learned it. So how did they do it? And the answer is that sometimes there's a job that needs to get done. And you may say, well, I don't know how to do it. I was never trained. It's not my area of expertise. But then there are others that say, we need to do it. We'll figure it out. Their hearts are elevated. Their hearts are raised up to get the job done. And therefore, they go ahead and they do it. And then God grants them the ability, the intuition, the insight, the ability to succeed, even though they weren't trained or prepared for that task, because their hearts are elevated to want to achieve it. Someone once said that the Titanic was built by professionals. Noah's Ark was built by an amateur. It's not only whether you are trained, but does your heart motivate you? Do you have a desire to accomplish it? If you do, then God will bless your efforts and you will succeed. When you think about parenting, it's not something you could learn from a book. It's not something you could get a license. It has to come from your heart. It has to come from your soul. It has to come from your kishkis, from your guts, to love and to give and to cherish the relationship with your child. And therefore, there is no such thing as a professional parent. Is only a loving and devoted parent, and this is something that comes naturally and intuitively. Rabbi Lau once said that the story of the Jewish people in the land of Israel is not about the mightiest nation. How did we succeed to come back to our ancestral homeland and prevail over so many enemies all around us? And he said a beautiful phrase in Hebrew. He said, Lo b'schut hakoach, ela b'koach haschut, which means it's not in the merit of our power, but in the power of our merit. Yes, we need to have power. Yes, we need to have strength. Yes, we need to have skills and abilities and talents. That's all important. But ultimately what makes us succeed is the strength of our merit, not the merit of our strength. Our merit is how elevated our hearts are to do the will of Hashem and how much God blesses the work of our hands. There was a story just this last Thursday in Israel where in Beitar Illit, a Jewish community, a terrorist planted a bomb on a bus. And a woman by the name of Rivka, who was going home to her family, was on the bus and she wanted a quiet space, so she went towards the back of the bus. And suddenly she heard a hissing, like a buzzing sound in the seat behind her, but nobody was sitting there. She turned around and saw a bag on the seat, and there was noise coming out of the bag. She ran and told the bus driver, who immediately got everyone off the bus. They called the police, and sure enough, it was a bomb that a terrorist had left on the bus. And they detonated the bomb, and nobody was injured. And the police announced that everyone in Beitar Illit should stay in their homes with their doors and windows locked because there's a terrorist on the loose. And it was only the next morning that they said, we've apprehended the terrorist, and everyone could leave their homes. Well, this woman, Rivka, her parents lived in Monsey, New York. And when she called her father with the news and how she discovered the bomb and saved all the fellow passengers from a terrorist attack, Her father said, tell me, what mitzvah did you do recently to merit such a great zechut, such a blessing to be able to discover this bomb and save a busload of Jews from, God forbid, a tragedy? Did you do anything special? And she said, I did. And he said, what? And he said, well, on Purim, I went to shul, and I heard the Megillah. And the Megillah talks about how Mordechai gathered and unified all the Jews to pray for Esther. And it was in the merit of Jewish unity that we were saved. She said to her father, my neighbor in Beitar Illit built this big porch that protrudes out of the home and blocks my view and the sunlight that comes down in the morning. And I got into a fight with my neighbor, and we had words between us. And she went ahead and built this big porch anyways, and we stopped talking to each other, and we've been in a fight for over a year. After I went to Shul on Purim, I realized this is no way to live. I need to make peace with her. So the next day on Purim, I took a shalach manis, and I went with a basket of food to her house. I knocked on the door, and she opened the door. She couldn't believe I was standing there. And I said, look, we've been fighting for over a year. We're neighbors. We have to live in peace. We have to love each other. We embraced, we hugged, we exchanged shalach manis. And she said to her father, I believe it was in the merit of that mitzvah of making peace with my neighbor that I merited to discover this bomb and save all my fellow passengers. Let us remember, don't only look at your abilities and your skills. Look at how devoted you are, how much you have desire and passion and drive to succeed in doing what Hashem wants us to do, how elevated and motivated our hearts are. And then in the merit of our good deeds, we will prevail and succeed. Have a wonderful day.